All right, so have you ever gotten stuck trying to come up with ideas for a D&D campaign?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Well, what if I told you that there's actually a ton of inspiration hiding in plain sight?
Where?
Classic literature.
Oh, wow. I actually just used that for a recent game.
Really?
Yeah, the whole campaign was based on the Count of Monte Cristo, betrayal, revenge, secret identities.
Yeah.
But with magic swords and dungeons.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was really fun seeing those themes play out in a fantasy setting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's funny you should mention that because today's deep dive is all about how we can use classic lit to spark D&D campaigns.
Right.
We're looking at an article from LitRPG Reads.
Okay.
It's called Classic Literature as D&D Campaigns. Adventure Ideas for Dungeon Masters.
Oh, cool.
And it's written by Isaac Hansen.
Okay.
So
sounds neat.
Yeah, and this article really emphasizes that you shouldn't just directly translate a novel into a campaign.
I can see.
It's more about taking out the core elements of the story.
Right.
Like the themes or the character arcs, the conflicts, and then reimagining them for D&D.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's like taking the DNA of a story and then creating something totally new.
Yeah.
So the article even suggests these really cool setting swaps.
Okay.
So you could take a Victorian England story and then just drop it right into a medieval empire.
Oh, wow.
Or you could reimagine ancient Greece as a floating city.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And when you start to think about how magic and monsters could fit into those narratives, the possibilities are just endless.
Totally.
Imagine Romeo and Juliet, but then there's a dragon attack.
Oh my God.
Or The Great Gatsby, where all the characters are secretly sorcerers.
Oh, wow. Okay, those are some wild ideas.
Yeah.
But I see your point.
Right.
You're taking these familiar stories and injecting them with that D&D magic.
Exactly. And the article has these specific examples of campaigns you could create.
Right.
For example, the Odyssey would be perfect for a campaign where the player's journey is shaped by divine intervention.
Okay.
The gods could be constantly meddling in their affairs, helping them, sometimes hindering them, or even challenging them directly.
Imagine a character trying to appease Poseidon after they accidentally sank one of his temples.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be a tough spot.
Yeah.
That's what makes the concept so cool, though. You have these epic forces at play, and the player's actions can have huge consequences.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Another example that really stood out to me was the Count of Monte Cristo.
Right.
The article talks about using hidden allies and betrayal mechanics to create a campaign with all these twists and turns.
Yeah.
Imagine the players forming these alliances, but then later finding out that their closest confidant is working for the enemy.
Wow, that's a great idea.
Yep.
Especially since the Count of Monte Cristo is all about identity and transformation.
Right.
You could have players adopting secret identities, maybe infiltrating criminal organizations, and ultimately deciding if they want revenge or forgiveness.
It would basically be like a D&D spy thriller, with players always second-guessing everyone's motives.
Yeah, and those shifting alliances, they could even tie into character development.
Okay.
Maybe a player starts out wanting revenge, but then learns compassion along the way.
Okay.
Or vice versa.
Interesting.
It's a chance to explore those moral gray areas.
Love that. It's not just about the action and the intrigue. It's about those deeper themes that make the story so compelling.
Exactly. Now, if you want something darker, with a more Gothic vibe, the article also talks about adapting classic horror stories, like Dracula and Frankenstein.
Oh, cool.
Imagine a Dracula campaign where players are exploring these crumbling castles, haunted forests, abandoned villages, all while trying to stop the spread of vampirism.
That's awesome.
And then with Frankenstein, the article focuses on exploring the consequences of unchecked ambition and the ethics of creating life. What if players accidentally unleash a powerful but unpredictable magical being on the world?
That could be scary.
It would be a serious moral dilemma.
Totally. It's not just about fighting monsters. It's about grappling with the consequences of your actions.
Exactly.
And facing tough questions about what it means to be human in a world where magic and monsters exist.
Right. I can already see the campaign tagline, "Who's the real monster?"
Ooh, I like that.
It's about challenging assumptions and making players think about the complexities of good and evil.
Okay. So for a completely different kind of challenge, the article suggests adapting Shakespearean plays into campaigns that are full of political intrigue.
Right.
Macbeth and Hamlet are specifically highlighted.
Okay. A Macbeth campaign could be all about ambition, power, and the corrupting influence of both.
Right.
Imagine a realm where prophecies and supernatural forces are at play, pushing characters towards their destinies, whether they want to embrace them or not.
That's awesome. It would be like a Game of Thrones, but with magic and monsters.
Exactly. And players could find themselves right in the middle of a power struggle.
Wow.
Forced to make difficult choices that could have really far-reaching consequences.
The Hamlet idea is interesting, too. Yeah. Turning the play into like a D&D murder mystery, complete with ghostly apparitions and courtly drama.
Right.
Sounds like a fantastic way to combine role-playing and investigation.
And Hamlet is all about those deeper themes of betrayal, revenge, and madness.
Right.
Which could add some serious psychological depth to the campaign.
Yeah.
Imagine players trying to solve a murder while navigating a court full of secrets, lies, and hidden agendas.
And we can't forget about the ghost of Hamlet's father.
Oh, right.
Imagine encountering that.
Yeah.
In a shadowy castle hallway.
Spooky. Yeah. You could even incorporate elements of the play within the play, giving players a chance to stage a performance that reveals the truth about the murder.
That would be so meta players acting as actors within the game, trying to expose the villain through their performance.
Exactly. It's a chance to get creative with the storytelling and push the boundaries of what's possible in D&D.
And finally, the article looks at campaigns inspired by ancient mythology.
Okay.
Specifically, the Epic of Gilgamesh and Dante's Inferno.
Right.
Talk about some epic source material.
Yeah. The Epic of Gilgamesh could be a fantastic campaign focused on a hero's quest for immortality and the challenges of confronting your own mortality. Imagine players journeying through ancient ruins, battling mythical beasts and seeking the secrets of eternal life.
That sounds amazing. It would be a campaign that really pushes the boundaries of what's possible in D&D.
Right.
Allowing players to experience the world through the lens of ancient myth.
And Dante's Inferno offers a completely different kind of challenge. Imagine a campaign where the players descend through the 9 circles of hell.
Wow.
Facing demons and devils. And witnessing the punishments of the damned.
But also really compelling.
Yeah.
It would force players to confront their own morality and grapple with the nature of good and evil.
And just like in Dante's epic poem, the journey through hell could ultimately be a journey of redemption as players try to escape the underworld and return to the world of the living.
Wow, that's a powerful image. It's like using Dante's Inferno to tell a story about hope and second chances.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of adapting classic literature for D&D.
Right.
It's about taking these timeless stories.
Yeah, and finding new ways to make them relevant and engaging for modern players.
So we've covered a lot here.
Yeah.
From epic adventures to Gothic horror to political intrigue and even journeys through the underworld.
Right.
It seems like the possibilities really are endless.
They really are. And the best part is it's all up to the dungeon master and the players to decide what kind of story they want to tell. The article just provides a starting point.
Exactly. It's about taking those classic stories as inspiration and using your own creativity to create something truly unique and memorable.
And that's what makes D&D so special. It's a game that lets us explore different worlds, different stories, and even different versions of ourselves.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
Yeah, it has.
And I'm already buzzing with ideas for my next campaign.
Me too. It's amazing how these classic stories can still resonate with us today.
Totally.
And inspire us to create new and exciting adventures. Huge thanks to LitRPG Reads and Isaac Hansen for giving us so much to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
And of course, we can't forget about you, our amazing listeners.
Right. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode.
Which classic stories would you love to see adapted for a D&D campaign?
What themes or elements would you focus on?
Share your ideas in the comments below, and let's keep this conversation going.
We're always excited to hear from you. You know, one thing that really struck me about the article is that it doesn't just throw out these campaign ideas. It actually gives some pretty practical advice on how to adapt classic literature for D&D.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Right.
It's one thing to say like, hey, turn the Odyssey into a D&D campaign.
Right.
But it's another thing to actually figure out how to do that in
Yeah.
a way that's engaging and fun for the players.
Exactly. The article emphasizes that the first step is to really understand the source material.
Okay.
It's not just about like skimming the Cliff's Notes. It's about identifying those core themes, character arcs, and conflicts that really make the story work. You know, what are the big ideas the author's trying to explore?
Yeah.
What are the motivations of the characters? What are the challenges they face?
Okay.
Once you have a good grasp on those elements, you can start thinking about how to translate them into a D&D context.
I think that's such an important point.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in like the surface level details.
Right.
But it's those underlying themes that give it depth and resonance.
Absolutely. And once you've identified those core elements, you can start brainstorming ways to adapt them for your campaign.
Okay.
So for example, let's say you're working with the Odyssey.
Okay.
One of the central themes is the hero's journey.
Right.
The idea of a character leaving home, facing challenges, and ultimately returning transformed by their experiences.
Okay.
How could you translate that into a D&D campaign?
Well, you could start by creating a world that's full of mythical creatures and dangerous landscapes.
Right.
Kind of mirroring the challenges Odysseus faces in the epic poem. Maybe the players have to sail across a treacherous sea, navigate a labyrinthine underworld, or even battle a cyclops.
Exactly. And you could even tie those encounters to the player's character development.
Okay.
Maybe one of the players has a fear of the unknown,
Right.
and they have to overcome that fear to complete a quest.
Oh, okay.
Or maybe another player is struggling with their sense of identity, and their journey helps them discover who they really are.
I love that idea.
Yeah.
It's about using those classic story elements
Right.
to create meaningful experiences for the player.
Exactly. And the article also talks about the importance of setting.
Okay.
You can really get creative with this,
Right.
picking a classic story
Uh-huh.
and putting it into a completely different world.
Like we said earlier, you could take a story set in Victorian England
Right.
and reimagine it as a medieval empire in a fantastical underwater city, or even a world where magic has replaced technology.
The key is to think about how that change in setting
Right.
would affect the story. How would the characters behave differently?
Yeah.
What new challenges would they face?
Yeah.
What new opportunities would arise?
It's almost like writing fan fiction
Right.
with a D&D twist.
Exactly. And speaking of twists, the article also suggests using D&D mechanics to add an extra layer of depth and intrigue to your campaigns.
Okay.
So when adapting the Count of Monte Cristo, for example, you could introduce a hidden loyalty system where players have to roll to determine their true allegiances.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
Right.
It would create this constant sense of paranoia and suspicion. Just like in the novel. Players would never know who to trust.
Yeah.
And they might even have to betray their friends to achieve their goals.
Exactly. And that could lead to some really interesting role-playing opportunities. Maybe a player has to choose between their loyalty to their friends and their desire for revenge. Or maybe they have to sacrifice their own morals to achieve a greater good.
Those are the kinds of choices that can really make a campaign memorable. It's not just about rolling dice and slaying monsters. It's about making tough decisions that have real consequences for the characters and the world around them.
And when you're dealing with themes of betrayal and revenge, those choices become even more complex and morally ambiguous. It's a chance to explore the darker sides of human nature.
I think that's one of the reasons why classic literature lends itself so well to D&D. These stories often deal with universal themes.
Right.
You know, love, loss, betrayal, ambition. They tap into those fundamental human experiences that we can all relate to.
Exactly. And by bringing those themes into our D&D games, we can create experiences that are not only fun and exciting, but also meaningful and thought-provoking. It's a chance to explore those big questions about life, death, morality, and what it means to be human.
And the article provides some concrete examples of how to do that. For instance, when adapting a story like Dracula, you could focus on creating a campaign that's steeped in atmosphere and suspense. Think about incorporating elements like haunted castles, abandoned villages, creepy forests, and of course those iconic creatures of the night, vampires, werewolves, ghouls, and so on.
Absolutely. And you could use D&D mechanics to enhance that sense of horror.
How so?
Well, maybe the players have to make sanity checks to avoid being driven mad by the things they see and hear.
Right.
Or maybe they have to contend with a vampire's ability to charm and control their minds.
That's a great way to make the players feel truly vulnerable and immersed in the world.
Exactly. And you could even incorporate those classic Dracula tropes. Like the vampire's aversion to sunlight, the need to be invited into a home, and the use of crucifixes and holy water as weapons. It's a chance to pay homage to the source material while also adding your own unique spin to it.
I love those little details that tie back to the original story. It's a way to show that you've really done your homework and that you're committed to creating an authentic experience.
And speaking of authenticity, the article also talks about the importance of capturing the tone and style of the original work. So for instance, if you're adapting Hamlet, you'll want to create a campaign that's full of courtly intrigue, philosophical musings, and of course that iconic sense of tragedy.
Right. You wouldn't want to turn Hamlet into a slapstick comedy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about understanding the essence of the story and finding ways to translate that essence into your D&D game.
Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about those political intrigue campaigns inspired by Shakespeare. We've already talked about Macbeth and Hamlet a little. But I'm curious to hear more about how those plays could be adapted for a D&D setting.
Well, with Macbeth, you could create a campaign that's all about ambition prophecy and the corrupting influence of power. Imagine a realm where the players are caught in a web of political machinations, supernatural forces, and bloody betrayals. They might have to choose sides in a civil war, navigate a treacherous court full of backstabbers, or even confront a tyrant who's been driven mad by their own lust for power.
It sounds like a recipe for some epic role-playing moment. Imagine a player having to betray their king to fulfill a prophecy. Or another player wrestling with the temptation to seize power for themselves.
Exactly. And you could incorporate those iconic elements from the play. Like the three witches, the dagger that appears before Macbeth, and of course Lady Macbeth's relentless ambition.
And let's not forget about those famous lines. Imagine a player delivering Macbeth's tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow speech after suffering a devastating loss.
Wow, that would be chilling.
It would. Now with Hamlet, you mentioned the idea of turning it into a murder mystery. I'm really intrigued by that concept. How would that work in practice?
Well, you could start by establishing the setting. A castle full of secrets, a court rife with suspicion, and a king who's met an untimely end. The players could take on the roles of investigators, maybe members of the royal guard, or even advisors to the new king. Their mission is to uncover the truth behind the murder. But they quickly realize that nothing is as it seems.
It sounds like a classic whodunit, but with a D&D twist.
Exactly. And you could incorporate those iconic elements from the play, like the ghost of Hamlet's father, the play within a play, and the final duel.
The ghost could even be a recurring character in the campaign, appearing to the players at key moments to offer clues or warnings.
That's a great idea. And you could even have the players stage their own version of the play within a play, using it to try and trap the real killer.
That would be so meta. It's like players acting as actors within the game, trying to expose the villain through their performance.
Exactly. It's a chance to get really creative with the storytelling and push the boundaries of what's possible in a D&D game.
And let's not forget about those deeper themes of betrayal, revenge, and madness that are so central to Hamlet.
You could really delve into the psychology of the characters, exploring their motivations and their inner turmoil.
Hamlet is a play that's full of moral ambiguity and psychological complexity. It's not a simple story of good versus evil. It's a story about the human condition,
Right.
about the choices we make and the consequences we face.
And those are themes that can resonate deeply with players, especially in a game like D&D, where they're constantly making choices that shape their characters and the world around them.
I think that's one of the things that makes adapting classic literature for D&D so rewarding. It's not just about borrowing plot points or characters. It's about taking those timeless stories and using them to explore deeper themes and ideas.
Exactly. And it's about finding those moments where the classic story and the D&D game can intersect in a way that's both surprising and satisfying.
Now let's turn our attention to those mythology-inspired campaigns. The article specifically mentions the Epic of Gilgamesh and Dante's Inferno as potential sources of inspiration.
The Epic of Gilgamesh is a fascinating story about a hero's quest for immortality and the challenges of confronting one's own mortality. It's a story that's full of adventure, intrigue, and philosophical musings.
I can see how that would translate well into a D&D campaign. Imagine the players setting out on a quest to find a lost artifact that grants eternal life. Or battling mythical creatures that guard the secrets of immortality.
Exactly. And you could incorporate those iconic elements from the epic, like the flood that destroys the world, the search for the plant of immortality, and the friendship between Gilgamesh and Enkidu.
And the setting itself could be incredible. Ancient Mesopotamia with its towering ziggurats, sprawling cities, and vast deserts.
Absolutely. It's a world that's ripe for exploration and adventure.
Now, Dante's Inferno is a very different kind of story. It's a descent into the underworld, a journey through the 9 circles of hell, where the damned are punished for their sins. It's a dark and disturbing story, but it's also a powerful one.
Exactly. And it could make for a truly unique and challenging D&D campaign. Imagine the players descending through those 9 circles, encountering all sorts of demons and devils, and witnessing the punishments of the damned.
It would be a campaign that's both terrifying and thought-provoking.
Absolutely. And you could use D&D mechanics to enhance that sense of horror and dread.
How so?
Well, maybe the players have to make saving throws to avoid being tempted by demons. Or maybe they have to contend with the psychological effects of witnessing so much suffering.
And just like in Dante's poem, the journey through hell could ultimately be a journey of redemption. Maybe the players are tasked with rescuing a lost soul from damnation. Or maybe they have to confront their own inner demons to escape the underworld.
Exactly. It's a chance to explore those big questions about morality, justice, and the afterlife.
And the setting itself is incredibly evocative. Imagine those fiery pits, icy wastes, and monstrous landscapes described in Dante's poem.
Absolutely. It's a world that's both terrifying and fascinating.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Exploring a wide range of classic literature and how it can be adapted for D&D campaigns. What are some of the key takeaways you'd like our listeners to remember?
Well, I think the most important thing is to be creative and have fun. Don't be afraid to experiment and try new things.
Don't feel limited by the traditional D&D tropes.
Exactly.
There's a whole world of inspiration out there just waiting to be discovered.
And remember, it's not about copying the source material word for word. It's about taking those classic stories and using them as a springboard for your own unique and memorable campaigns.
And who knows? Maybe you'll even inspire your players to pick up a classic book or two.
That would be a wonderful bonus.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, let's take a moment to appreciate the power of storytelling. Whether it's in the form of a novel, a play, a poem, or a D&D campaign, stories have the ability to transport us to other worlds. Introduce us to new characters and challenge our perspectives.
Absolutely. Stories connect us to each other and to the larger human experience. They help us understand who we are, where we come from, and where we're going.
And when we bring those stories into our D&D games, we're not just rolling dice and slaying monsters. We're creating something truly special.
Exactly. We're weaving tapestries of imagination, forging memories that will last a lifetime.
And that's what makes D&D so much more than just a game.
Right.
It's a shared experience,
Yeah.
a collaborative art form, and a powerful tool for exploration and self-discovery.
Yeah.
You know, it's amazing to think about all the potential out there
Yeah.
in classic literature for D&D campaigns. I feel like we only just scratched the surface.
I agree. The article just gives us a little taste of what's possible.
Yeah.
The real magic happens when dungeon masters take those ideas and make them their own.
It's all about that creative spark, right?
Absolutely.
Taking inspiration from these classic stories and then just using your imagination to build something new and exciting.
Think about it this way.
Okay.
You're essentially collaborating with authors from the past.
Oh.
You're taking their characters, their themes, their worlds, and weaving them into the fabric of your D&D game.
It's almost like a conversation across time.
Right.
These classic stories have endured for centuries because they tap into something universal about being human. And now we have the opportunity to continue that conversation through D&D.
Exactly. And in doing so, we're not just entertaining ourselves and our players, we're exploring those timeless themes and ideas in a new and engaging way.
I think that's what makes D&D such a powerful form of storytelling. And it's interactive, it's collaborative, and it allows us to experience those classic stories in a way that's both personal and immersive.
And it's not just about the players either.
Okay.
As a dungeon master, you have the opportunity to be really creative when you're adapting classic literature. You're not just running a game. You're creating a world, crafting a narrative, and bringing those classic characters to life in a whole new way.
I think that's what I find so exciting about this whole concept.
Yeah.
It's a chance to break free from the traditional D&D mold and explore new possibilities.
It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible in D&D and creating experiences that are both meaningful and memorable.
So for all those dungeon masters out there who are feeling stuck, I encourage you to give this a try. Pick up a classic novel, a play, a poem, or even a myth. Dive into that story and see what sparks your imagination.
You might be surprised at the incredible D&D adventures that await you.
This has been an awesome deep dive.
It has.
And I want to thank you for sharing your insights and expertise.
It was my pleasure.
A huge shout out to LitRPG Reads and Isaac Hansen for the fantastic article
for sure
that inspired this episode. And to our listeners.
Yes.
We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Definitely.
Which classic stories would you adapt for your D&D games?
What themes or elements would you focus on?
Share your ideas in the comments below.
Yes, please do.
We're always excited to hear from you.